Namaskar. Welcome to Prakash on Basics. I'm Prakash Zog. To understand Indian culture and religion, we must follow the historical timeline. So I'm going to stick to that timeline. Our religion is based on the contemplation of thousands of sages, rishis as they are known, thinkers over thousands of years. It has adapted and modified itself with time. Hindu religion is basically dynamic in nature. From the Vedic Dharma to today's Sanatana Dharma that we know of, Hindu religion has undergone many modifications, all of them for the better. To avoid its early Vedic drawbacks and limitations, new religions, the major ones being Jainism and Buddhism, came to the forefront. And to overcome their drawbacks, the Puranic Dharma, based on the Puranas, took over. It then evolved into the present Sanatana Dharma, as we know. To understand these changes, we must know all of these in brief. All of them. The Puran, the Jainism as a religion, Buddhism, since all of them are practically of the same period, we must choose a sequence. It is believed that the Puranas are a little earlier. So we will start with the Puranas to begin with. Let us first try and understand what Puran means. The word originally is associated with the concept of being Pura, that is very old, but which has been presented as now, not only now, but in the past also. The Puranas are ancient and they are believed to be post Vedic in nature. But the Puranas have been mentioned in the Atharva Ved, the Shatpath Brahman, the Taittiriya Aranyak, the Chandogya Upanishad, the Bruhadaranyak Upanishad. They are also in some later post Vedic texts. They are in the epics Mahabharata. They are in the Apastamba and the Gautam Dharma Sutras. These obviously are post Vedic, and many a times the word itihas, that is history, is attached along with the Puranas. This also highlights their historical importance. So, traditionally, these Puranas started off with the Brahma Purana or the Adi Purana, which was given by Brahmadev again to Vyas Maharshi. He reorganized it and gave it to his disciple Lomaharsha. Lomaharsha, with his six disciples, reorganized and split it into 18 Mahapuranas and 18 Upapuranas. A Purana is expected to have Panchalakshana, five categories of characters or characteristics. If a Puran has all five of them, it is referred to as a Mahapurana. And if it has around three of them at least, then it is known as an Upapurana. These Panchalakshanas must also be known to us. The first one is Sarga. that is creation, origin, and development of the whole universe. It's followed by Pratisarga, that's the opposite, which means the end of the universe. Uh, this is also sometimes talked of as its recreation in the next kalpa, a very big time span. The third characteristic is Vangsha. It is genealogies of deities, rishis, gods, demons. The fourth characteristic is Manvantara, the cosmic cycles which are associated with the time span of Manu, the originator of humanity. The fifth category is Vangsha Charita, genealogies of kings, their dynasties, and descriptions of the kings. This Manvantara is the reign of one Manu in such a time span, which is very big. um, the Manu is created, the Saptarshis are created, Indra is created, and Manu rules over this time span. A time span which can be worked out to be 306,720,000 years. It's big, big, big span. And we are in what is known as the Vaivaswat Manvantara. Vaivaswat is the name of the Manu of this period. And he is the seventh Manu in the chain of 14 in this kalpa or a time span. And it is also further subdivided into yogas, as many of you all know. And we are at present in the Kali Yuga or the fourth yuga of this particular Manvantar. It's big, big, big time reference. And this word Vanshacharita that we talked of refers to sometimes gods or very important families of gods, the Ishvakus, from where Ram originates, which is the Suryavamshis, and the Chandravamshis, where the Kurus and the Yadus originate. What is the logical origin of all this? Let's try and look into that also. During many of the yajnas that used to be performed at certain time spans within the yajna, evenings or dusk time or rest periods, there would be different bards or ballad singers who used to sing a variety of songs and compositions. These covered folklore, tales from Mahabharata, Ramayana, some religious tales, those of kings, their families. These gradually kept on being compiled. This period of the Puranas that we are talking of is the socio-political development period, which is in Indian history typically referred to as the Janapadas, small, compact, state-like structures, which later on developed into Mahajanapadas, practically like very small kingdoms and empires. Um, Many of them are known to us. 16 of them were supposed to be the most important ones in that span of history. We've heard the names of many of them from places like Mahabharata, Magadha, Matsya, Koshala, Kashi, Panchal, Anga, Kalinga, Vaishali, Avanti, Chedi, Kuru, Gandhar, and so many others. Uh, Many of them, more than 16, were also present. The Vedic study had not stopped, but Vedic study had strict rules. Only the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas could study Vedas. The Kshudra were not allowed to study Vedas. Women, most of them, were barred from studying Vedas. There were some, We'll come to those sometime later. Um, but this restriction was not there for the Puranas. For studying a Puran, there were no such restrictions. It was open for all, ladies as well as Shudras, educated or non educated people. And many of the information that these people gathered was through listening to others talking about it. So, this information, pool of information, continued to grow with time, evolve over a very large period of time. Their language obviously was Sanskrit. It is in the form of couplets, typically referred to as shloka. Uh, the number was very vast. It is estimated somewhere between 4 lakhs and 5 lakhs, 400,000 and 500,000. Um, the number varies because some of them are repeated in different Upanishads, sorry, in different Puranas. If you look at the development of Sanskrit and its grammar, within these Puranas, you can determine their period of when they were compiled in this form. It is safe to estimate that the Mahajanpada time, that is around 7th century BC, up to around 7th century AD, is when their compilation took place. It didn't really stop at 7th century AD. It continued much later. Some of the Puranas have areas and pockets which are much, much later in time span. Um, this is a vast literature. It was then categorized and split into 18 major ones and 18 smaller parts based on the deities or gods who were very often referred to in these Purana. I mentioned the Mahapurana. Mahapurana, the big ones, which had all the five characteristics, are 18 in number. Matsya Purana, Markandeya Puran, Bhavishya Puran, Bhagavad Puran, Brahma, Brahmand, Brahma Vaivarta, Vishnu, Vayu, Varaha, Vaman. There could be others that are also grouped in various shlokas like Agni, Narad, Padma, Linga, Garud, Kurma, Skanda. It was categorized as Anapalinga Kuska as the word that was used to remember some of these. Um, these form the 18 that I talked of. The Vayu Purana has a section which is dominated by the Shiva aspect. And so it is also referred to as the Shiva Puran and is treated as a part of the major Puranas. There's one more text, part of actually Mahabharata, known as Harivamshi. There are many people who believe that this should also be treated as a part of the Mahapurana. And what about the Upapuranas? They are named after many of the rishis and deities also. Durvas, Kapil, Bhargav, Parashar, Vashishta, Ganesh, Mudgal, Nandi, Surya, Vaman, Shivarhasya, Varuna, Kalika, Samb, Hams, Narasimha, Sanat Kumar, and Brahan Narad. These typically form the 18 Upapuranas. But if you look at the listing that is done within Puranas also, these listings sometimes differ. The names are not exactly the same in many of the texts. What I have given you is the general names that are commonly known to people, accepted by people. From the list of names that I read out, mentioned out, put forward before you, it is clear that they represent major gods, their families, family members, rishis, and the five major sects. I had mentioned them sometime long back. The Shaiva, the Vaishnava, the Shakta, the Ganapatya, and the Saura. um, five major ones that are always talked of in Indian religion. These language factors did not remain restricted only to Sanskrit. The Puranas were translated in most of the other languages that are around in India, all the major languages. Um, and right now, right up to today's date, they are being written and talked of in other languages also. The major contribution to all this has been done by the Gita Press from Gorakhpur, and they still publish texts of all the Puranas that we know of. And what do they contain? The list of what is not covered in the Puranas is shorter than what has been touched on in the Puranas. The topics are numerous and diverse. The list keeps getting longer and longer if you look at different categories. It goes on and on, on and on. I'll just mention a few of them. It covers major myths that we know of. All these sects that I talked of, the sectarian theology is covered in that. All superstitions are mentioned. Philosophy, rituals, art, war, astronomy, astrology, medicines, music, grammar, ethics, agriculture. They also list the genealogies from the epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, right up to the Nanda kings, just prior to the Maurya kings. Specific Puranas would give genealogies. For example, the Vishnu Puran gives the genealogies rather of Mauryas, the Shunga dynasty, the Kanva dynasty, the Purus, while the Vayu Purana gives the genealogy of all the Gupta kings. The Matsya Puran talks of the Satavahanas, which are from the lower part of Maharashtra, the central region of, Maharashtra, upper parts. Um, Being dedicated to all these different sects, many related tales associated with glorifying these sects are inevitably present in all of the Puranas related to these sects. Um, Other than the Panchalakshanas that we talked of, many different additional tales are also mentioned there. These are all meant to be guides in the study of social development and history of early Hinduism that we know of. In spite of so many gods that are there, the ultimate aspect is always talking of the unity of all these gods in some form or the other. And that's always mentioned. Unity in diversity is a common thread. Tolerance is another major issue. The other virtues are suitably stressed in every story or a tale that is talked of. The Puranas typically concentrate on practical ethics. And there are some very important terms that are very typical of Hinduism. Bhakti, that's nothing but intense devotional affection, you could say. And that is treated as the main route to God. The Puranas mark bhakti as one of the major issues. Self discipline, self control, and social welfare is a part and parcel of most of the information that is passed on in the Puranas. Uh, these Puranas had developed into what is typically referred to as the Pauranic Dharma, which, as I mentioned, has finally evolved into the Sanatan Dharma. Uh, I'll go into this Puranic Dharma and its major aspects just after a few more sessions. The Puranas are the scriptures for common man, along with Ramayana and Mahabharata. Those two are always coupled along with the Puranas and they overlap in quite a few parts. For the uneducated masses, They provide the guidelines of what Hindu religion really is. They are a source of all possible knowledge for the uneducated who had to listen to others and gain this knowledge. There were fixed patterns that were carried out in temples. These are known as kirtan and pravachan. These were at the end of the day, and people used to gather around and listen to people, experts talking. And that's how this information kept on reaching the common man. In the process, sometimes things got a little exaggerated. So there could be some issues relating to numbers, the number of years that a particular god or a particular king reigned. It could be multiplied by a factor of 10. Or how tall was a person? Very big, very large, as good as 10 trees. So such numbers got uh, diluted, modified, errored upon because of these communication patterns. So there were so many methods by which the information from the Puranas was passed on to the common man. The Puranas complement the Ved, that is the Shrutis. Many a time they simplify many of the ideas that are there in the Vedas, which don't usually reach the common man, and explain them through a wide range of tales, modified suitably, of gods, kings, of devotees, of demons, of birds, animals, and so forth. And the Puranas were treated to be equally important. Just Ved and Vedangas are not enough. Knowing the Puranas, only that makes knowledge complete, is one of the aspects dealing with this. It is said that the Pandit must know the Vedas, the Darshanik, that is the philosopher, must know the Upanishads, and the common man must know the Puranas if he has to understand our religion. The major concepts that were introduced by Puranas have been continuing all along right to date. Avatar is one of the major issues. Bhakti, Tirtha, Tirtha Yatra, Mahatmya, all these mean pilgrimages, holy places, and their importance. All this was highlighted in a number of Puranas that we have just talked of. I must remind you that avatars was also a major issue that has come to be highlighted to a very large extent by the Puranas. And this is not restricted to just one particular god. They are talked of for Vishnu, which I'll come to sometime later. But there are avatars of Shiva or Durga or Devi and so forth. And all these have been glorified and explained as a help to understand Hinduism to a better extent. This is what the Puranas are. And they have resulted into what I'm going to come to sometime later, the Puranic Dharma. But as these Puranas developed, there was simultaneous development of the two religions that I talked of, the Jainism and the Buddhism. And all these three are interrelated because many of the concepts from A are reflected in B and modified in C and so forth. So, to understand Indian religions better, I am going to come to these two religions also as we proceed further. If you have appreciated whatever I have said, please like and subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends about this. Let them know about what the Puranas are. Till we meet again next Saturday. Namaskar.